Today I'm going to be working on this group of pines planted in the ground 4 years ago. They are now established and growing fast. So let's graft them from bonsai. In the past 2 years I got lots of questions about approach grafting, why, how and when. So I'm going to explain everything in detail in this video. This is the first tree, around 3 meters tall or around 9 feet tall, but still doesn't have the mature bark, while others have already cracked nicely. I will be grafting a Japanese black pine cultivar onto it. First, I check the fitment, design the height and mark it. This sits too high still, so I'm going to have to dig a small hole for the pot to drop in. This hole will help me align the graft lower and keep the root system cooler, and thus means higher humidity in the pot. When I'm happy with the placement, I mark the graft spot. Some of you might notice that the angle of this graft is off. It is a bit too close to parallel to the ground, but there is reason behind that. Actually, there are two reasons behind that, and I will explain in detail in about 4.5 minutes. So I've been trying to graft these trees for 3 years now, but every graft failed. Even the successful ones did not make it through their first summer. I tried all of the possible seasons: early spring, early summer, early autumn and late autumn, and I came to the conclusion that in my garden there is a very narrow window in which the conditions are adequate for veneer grafting. There is just not enough time for the scion to fully fuse with the rootstock outside a proper grafting chamber. Thus I decided to go with approach grafting, and now it is the best time as the trees are established and thickening fast, and most of this thickening will take place from August to October. So back to the graft. I'm slowly widening the cut as I don't want to go wider than the scion. I need to have a very tight fit. I am cleaning the sheath of the needles to have a nice and clean contact. The cut should be deep enough to cut through the cambium completely, and the scion sits perfectly tucked inside and flush with the rootstock's bark on the outside. This is not deep enough yet, so I have to go in further so the scion sits flush with the bark on the outside of the rootstock. I always finish the cut with a knife, cleaning the cambium all around. When the scion fits nicely, it will stay in by itself, nice and tight. It looks okay now, so I'm going ahead with double nails. I'll use 3 of them for this graft. One of the most asked questions is why I don't expose the cambium of the scion. This is not necessary to have a successful approach graft. The graft will fuse over time. It's geometrically impossible not to. As long as you protect it from drying out, and give it enough time. Exposing the cambium of the scion will only introduce the danger of it dying back or becoming weak and slow down its thickening. It is absolutely unnecessary, as this is not a veneer or cleft graft. One of the most important factors is sealing off the graft fully, as you don't want for it to dry out. Drying out will probably fail the graft or slow it down by years. The best material for this is a nice healing paste. Backfilling the hole will help protect the pot from temperature, dryness, and many of the animals we have here that might try and move it. Like this little dude who might seem small, but he's powerful. Okay, so let's pause the video now and talk about this. The first reason for cutting close to horizontal is that if I did the popular 45-degree angle cut, I would get initially a nice looking continuation of the trunk, but keep in mind that this graft might take more than a year, and I might keep the top of the rootstock for a few years after the graft is successfully fused, just to thicken the base even more. After thickening, this 45-degree angle will look more like a 30 degree or less, making the final trunk line less interesting. Now, with this bigger angle, after thickening the base for a few more years, the final trunk line will look closer to 45 degrees and thus more dramatic. But the second reason is far more interesting. As both trees become thicker, geometrically it is inevitable that they will fuse, at least at the entry of the graft, and of course at the exit of the graft. A properly made graft will fuse along the stem as well, but this might not happen all the time. So after a successful fuse, and when I'm happy with the thickness of the base, I can come in and actually do the 45-degree cut of the top of the rootstock tree, as I will only need the exit part of the graft, if that makes sense, which is obviously successfully fused. I will only need this to keep the graft alive. In that way I will get my 45-degree angle chains in the trunk direction, and I will be able to remove the majority of the graft union, resulting in a cleaner looking tree with a more interesting change in direction. Okay, back to the video now. I am covering the top of the soil in the pot with coconut fiber rounds to use as mulch and protection. Here is the graft from my point of view, showing that it is flush with the rootstock tree and thus bringing the cambium layers closer to contact. Here's another tree I'm going to be doing next that has already a cracked bark. Thank you for your time.